Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of How It's Made. Today we're going to be going over Food for My Psyche. This one is one of my personal favorites that I've made. It was very, very fun to make. I can't really remember how long it took me. Probably like 3 months, maybe 3 or 4 months to make this song. But this was one of the more creative songs that I've made structure-wise, because there's no, even though there's like multiple choruses and like a bridge section and this, that, and the other, at the very start of the song we have this intro to an intro to a verse, which is it's really, really weird to think about. But yeah, so first of all, I'll go through, I'll just play it section by section and tell you how I did it. And yeah, here we go. So this part, I'm pretty sure this started out with me just kind of screwing off with the guitar and just certain ideas. And I had this running motif in my head, or lick, that just kept repeating the do da 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 da. That little bit. I kept having that running in my head, and I didn't know really what to do with it until I made this kind of chord progression to go with it, and it sounds like this. Now, that's something that I ended up bending a little bit to make sure it fit the choruses, and in another song called Siren, I ended up putting that in there as an Easter egg to kind of make it flow, because it's all a part of the same EP. There's Siren, Red Waters, and then this one, which is basically the meat and bones of the whole EP, and honestly one of my favorites. So yeah, let's keep going. You'll notice down here I have just regular pads and just a couple synths, and then right here I have a little bit of falsetto play, I guess is what you could call it. Yep, there's that, and then it goes into this pad, just doubles up a little bit, just to give it a little bit more texture. Even though you can't really hear it, it kind of it makes the original pad sound a little bit more full, and then it kind of gets buried a little bit by this little yeah, sounds a little bit weird solo, but like, yeah, sounds pretty cool. Texture-wise, it really adds a lot to the intro. So then let's go ahead and keep moving forward. We have this little lick. Now I think that is the first thing that I came up with, or the first lick idea that I came up with to actually spawn anything out of this song in general. So yeah, when I did that, I'm like, oh wow, this is a pretty chord, and I noticed that on the guitar I could actually add the root note, and it would sound really, really cool, or add the I guess the tonic and things like that, music theory. So yeah, and then I ended up doing that. I kept that idea going with this little section. Sorry. And you can hear the tonic is right under that little riff that I did. And then I emphasized it by doing literally the tonic, power chords. Yep, and then it cuts in right there. So yeah. And then this is what I was talking about with that whole intro to intro thing, where this is acting as an intro to a build up, and then it goes into this intro like riff idea thing. It's not exactly the intro, but it's like a like an intro chorus kind of thing. And then it goes into this really cool, hip, electronic little verse. Yeah, so we got the vocals. There's no added effects other than like reverb, maybe a little bit of delay or something like that. Other than that, that's very dry, with, of course, some EQ on it. And then we have, oh, what's this? Piece of candy. Oh, yeah. So we have little texture things going on. That's really hard to hear with the main vocals going on, but that's mainly to add some kind of depth and warmness to the actual vocal going on right there. So then there's this juicy pump bass going on, and this I don't really know because I'm not too good with like electronic stuff. So all this, I don't know any electronic EDM like jargon. So I'm probably going to sound a little bit weird right here, but like we have this kind of pumping, like swelling and unswelling kind of. And I really, really enjoyed that. So I'm like, okay, let's build on it. Let's emphasize that. So I added a little bit of bass, like a little bit of bass drum right there. And that's so like club-esque. That bass drum is super reminiscent of like a club. So yeah, and then there's this infinity pad to go over top of it. And I have that pan to the right a little bit to make it stand out a little bit on its own. So that's all that's happening right there, other than that little these little vocal candy bits. And then we have this right here. This is the bass guitar. I decided to bring in a bass and add just a little bit more depth and warmness. And I decided to add a little bit of a different rhythm right there, since the bass actually had its own like treble sound, so it could actually kind of be heard just a tiny bit, but not too overbearing to where it just doesn't fit. So dot 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 dot. So that's what I did right there. And then next up we have this little solo bit that I really don't know why I left this in here, because it was mainly a placeholder in like the instrumental version before I added lyrics, but I liked the sound of it anyway, so I just left it. It's very, very quiet. It's kind of in the back, but you can hear it just a tiny bit. And then the build up, there's a slight little bell set right here. I love me some bells. Yeah, and then to add some accentuated build-up, I have in this track the same thing, but an octave higher. So, yeah. So, yeah, let's continue. Do I need your sympathy to feed my egotistical and selfish mindless psyche? Yep, and like I said, this is basically like a verse to another verse that's coming up, which is really weird to think about, but yeah, let's hear it again. So real quick, what I want to talk about is the drum track. The drum track is just a sample, a little sample pack of this certain drum set within GarageBand. So I just decided to have that in a bunch, if not all of my recent tunes, because it is so easy to work with, at least for the genre that I'm going for. and it sounds really, really, really good. So yeah, let's hear that isolated. So yeah, it sounds really, really good. This stuff I actually did play on an electric kit, and I put it in through MIDI. You can see all that kind of stuff right here. Some of them are like off the grid just a tiny bit, so that kind of lets you know how, like, what I did. But there's some that are on the grid, like for example this kind of stuff right here. Now either I actually played it so well that it was on the grid, or there's a few, and I know there's a few here in this song in particular, a few licks or fills here and there that I ended up quantizing just a little bit, just to make it sound on the grid and sound really, really good. But other than that, I really, really like the idea of, or the sound particularly, of semi-loose, humanoid kind of sounding drums, rather than like a pop kind of doots, 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 doot, 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 all on the grid, you know, that kind of sound. So yeah, I kept that. Next, I have my usual little same thing with the guitars. Really, I record the guitars myself, and I don't quantize them ever, because for one, that's just too much time, and I'd rather learn how to play it on the grid rather than actually line it up on the grid. So yeah, so I basically just take the two same guitar parts. Every now and again I'll have two different guitar parts or two different licks that'll harmonize with each other, stereo wise, but for the most part I take the same, I basically double track the guitars is what it's typically called. So I'm basically playing it twice and putting it in each ear to make it sound like it's covering a wide range of direction. So we got the left track, and then we got the right track. So yeah, let's keep it going. So this section right here is basically the main verse, is how I personally am thinking about it. Probably is wrong, but like that's how I feel. That's how I wrote the song anyway. So we have this main idea. I am insignificant to you. And I'm pretty sure this lick actually came, like I wrote it before this one. And this one sounds like this. It's super fun. So yeah, so that's how that sounds. Whew. Sneezy boy. Whew. False alarm. Okay. So yeah, so we got that. The bass guitar is following along for the most part. And I'll show you exactly what I'm doing with the bass guitar, because I love, here in a minute, because I love what I figured out. I figured out a little trick that I saw. It's really, really fun. So this is what it sounds like. So the bass guitar is basically doing the same thing. But you'll notice in the bass guitar I have two tracks, and they look the exact same, because they are the exact same. But here's the difference. So I have EQ-wise, if I go here on the track, the top track has a low-pass filter on here, and it's just playing the low end. And I'm keeping that in mono, because whenever you spread a bass, or like if you pan a bass to make it spread over a wide range of like direction, or you want to put it to the right or put it to the left, you have a consequence of potentially making the song muddy. So what I did was I put this main bass track, the low end, on a mono sound, and then I took the same thing, copied it over, and then I put a high pass filter on, just to isolate the treble. Right? So I got that. But here's the difference. I put stereo spread on this one right here. So now I have this sounding wide range bass that just engulfs the whole like direction wise. So in and of itself, if I were to just play the regular bass sound, it would sound like this, which sounds fine, right? I did that right here because I didn't want to introduce that yet. But once I add this second track with that spread going on, it adds a lot more definition. So yeah, found that really, really cool when I found that out. Yeah. So next up, we got the vocal tracks. So in this project, it's honestly quite simple what I'm doing with the voice. Typically, what I did around this point in time was I took the vocals, did my part, and then I took the compression and like bumped it up a lot. And then when I did that, I would turn it down just a tiny bit, the whole thing with the fader. I would turn it down, and then I would add a tiny bit of reverb, and if it called for it, a little bit of delay. So that's basically what I did here. Ooh, boy. Sorry about that. Okay. So you can see I bumped up the compression a bunch on this track. And then if I scroll down a little bit, I don't have any delay, but I do have a little bit of reverb. So it lets me control it a little bit better. But as you can see, I still have a lot of automation going on to help me take care of those little bit of bumps that I need up or down. So yeah. So now I got that. God, sorry about that. So now we have the backups. Yep. So we got this octave, or not octave, sorry. We got this low, I know when I don't need to be here anymore. But this, you can't really hear it in the actual mix, but I kind of did that on purpose. I basically double tracked this part too. So similar to what I did with the guitars where I recorded it twice. Basically this just gives it like a, I couldn't really describe it. The closest thing that I could probably describe it to is similar to how Billie Eilish tracks her vocals. You can hear her a bunch and it just surrounds you. So yeah. I know when I don't need to be here anymore. So yeah, very soft, very delicate. And I'll show you what that sounds like. So yeah, so that's what that sounds like. And then, yeah, so the way that I organized this project is like guitars up here-ish, like mainly strings up top. This is usually how I do it. Strings up top. I have the drums somewhere in the middle. I used to place them on the bottom, but honestly, it kind of gave me some trouble with, I guess, my speed of how quick I work. And then below that, I have all of my vocals, all of them. And then below that, I have the rest of like the synthesizers and pads and all that kind of stuff, all that juicy goodness. So yeah, let's move on. So basically same thing through that whole area. The only new introduced thing is this little brass synth pad, or brass sounding, I guess. It's very 80s, like vaporwave kind of, maybe not 80s, but like vaporwave kind of sound. And I really, really enjoyed that. I think I took that inspiration from it was either Rings of Saturn or Born of Osiris with their synthesizer-ness. So, yeah. And the goal of this one wasn't to actually make it sound like a synth. It was to add texture and add a little bit more shimmerness to the high-end frequencies. So, yeah. And I did that quite a bit throughout the song, right? But that's basically the only new thing going on so far. So let's skip forward a little bit. So now that little part right before the chorus, super, super simple. I basically took the bass track, took the guitar tracks, and just chopped them up to where there was a very solid sound that I can use to chop it and place it over and over again. Or I think what I did here is I just took it and chopped it at the certain parts. I don't know. I forget. It's been a while. But yeah, so that's what this sounds like. So yeah, and it's basically hard chop. There's no automation to like whop, 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 whop instead of dot, dot, you know what I mean? So there's that. Same thing with the bass. Come on. So yeah. And then to make it not sound so choppy, I added a rat-tat-tat-tat on the snare of the drums. I added a little flam right there. Blat-tat-tat-tat. But yeah, so that gives it a lot of air to breathe and a lot of room to actually sound really good. So yeah, let's keep moving on. So this part is actually very, very simple. Like most of my choruses that I ever write, they're very, very melodic compared to the technically complex verses that I write most of the time. I mean, you can hear a couple little things that's happening up there in like the higher register, but other than that, it's pretty simple. And I mean, it gets even more simple in the bass. Literally sounds like this. Yeah, that's literally it. So it's fairly simple, but where it's complex is where the melody is. If it wasn't obvious enough. Right? That doesn't sound too complex, and it's really not, but then it gets to the little shimmery melodies right here. That's, as far as I know, like the only really, really complex thing about this whole thing. And that is on MIDI. And I'm pretty sure that is that quantized? I think that's quantized. Yeah, it's quantized. So yeah, super simple and very electronic. But yeah, so there's that. Sounds good. Moving right along, we got... What's funny is that's the exact same little lick that was in the chorus. So yeah, I kind of I didn't copy and paste, but like I took that, added onto it, and I'm clipping, sorry. I took that and I basically copied and pasted the synth over, but added to it by adding the these little guitars right here. And those are harmonized. That's probably why it sounds so different, is just because it actually has something different in there. But yeah, no, I just wanted to build on top of it and add it as a little break. Yeah. So right here is quite cool because this one's like, this one was one of the ideas that I had that kind of strayed from normal like rock and metal, where it's just doot doot cat doot, like backbeat on like 2 and 4, 1 2 3 4, you know. This one was different because I wanted to add a different feel, and I, for the longest time, I really hated the doots cat doots cat doot, that kind of beat. I can't remember what it's called or anything like that, but it's very, very Latin, right? For the longest time, I didn't like it, but then I kind of grown to it just a little bit when it was only added to things that weren't pop. Because you hear it every day in pop, right? Right? But like, in this, I wanted to add something very, very similar, if not that exact same thing, in a little section of it to give it a sound that sounded like it didn't belong, but it fit anyway. So here's that sound. Yeah, do cat do cat. You can hear it more if I isolate it. So yeah. Then we have these little doodads back here. You may have heard this in the actual mix, which I'm glad if you have. It's the violence, that little thing. And I purposefully panned those. I added a decent amount of delay and I panned those right to left. Right? So that adds a little bit of flavor. Yep. So then nothing really changes for the most part up until the pre-chorus, which is almost the same as the first one. So the first thing that we actually have different here is the, is the low octave in the vocals. So we have this one. I may have recorded that late at night now that I think about it. But yeah, so there's that. I must have been trying really freaking hard that day. But either way, it sounded really decent enough to stay in the mix. Huh. Yeah, I honestly forgot about that. So yeah, and then the next different thing that we have is this little break. All that is just it cuts to halftime for half a bar. That's all. And everything else drops out. It's just the drums and the voice. Then same thing for the most part when it comes to the chorus. Nothing really changed there until it gets to the bridge. And the bridge is fun because it's like it is a breakdown, but it's not a heavy breakdown. It's very what's the word? Because I want to say stupid because it's really weird. I'll get there when I get there, but yeah. So far it sounds like this. So the most that's happening here is just guitar tracks with drums and harmonized voice and bass. That is really it. There's no other synthesizers. I don't know why I keep tripping over that word. But yeah, so I mean, if anything that there's different is that there's the guitar tracks, and then we have is this right? Yeah. So we have the guitar tracks, and then we have this other guitar track that acts as octave harmonies. So it's playing octave chords and playing harmonies with the guitars. That is the most that's happening in this section, so we're just going to brush over that. And then it builds up right here. Okay, so this is all in 4/4. This is all in straight 4/4, but I messed with it a little bit by taking the first beat off. And because of that, it sounds really, really cool. And then I do something really, really stupid that I was laughing when I wrote it, like out loud. And I'm like, you know what? Let's keep it in there because it's just funny. It's good. So yeah, I'll play the breakdown and I'll explain what's going on. So yeah, so over this whole thing, there's no synthesizers. God, I don't know what it is with that word today. There's no synthesizers, so there's no kind of like a texture or breath or anything like that. It is just straight up headbanging. Yeah, it's pretty difficult, or not difficult, but it's fun. So the part that made me laugh a bunch mainly was this little section of the breakdown. So the guitars and the bass is literally just doing offbeats for an absurdly long amount of time. That's the only reason why it's funny. I know, comedic genius. Yeah, and then there's this laugh that I did. I think I tracked it twice. Same thing, stereo spread, double tracking, and it sounds really dumb when it's isolated, but it's funny. And the funniest part about that whole thing is that those laughs, I actually had to play it on the beat. Those are triplets. Triplet. Yeah. So it's pretty fun. That's pretty fun. And then it does this, does more breakdown stuff. And then it after the breakdown, it switches back into this thing that you heard in the beginning, the do-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, but I wanted to isolate that, and it sounds freaking awesome because there's only two of them happening, a high octave and the low octave, and because of that, it sounds really, really full. And something that I've done probably more than once is this right here. All of these are just me shouting, "Because you!" Sorry, I was clipping. But yeah, so you get the idea. Because you! Yeah, it's funny. Ooh, boy. So yeah, let me hold up. Okay, just wanted to make sure I wasn't talking in the monitor. So yeah, there was that. That was pretty funny. So here's something that I actually learned. You can make a choir with your voice. You really can. Even if you go to the extremes of sounding, because all it is just sounding like different voices. That's all it is. So you can make a choir by, doesn't matter if it's a pitched choir or an unpitched choir, like what you just heard, the "because you" just shouting. As long as you have voices that, like, if you want to project your regular voice, you can. Cool. You could do that one or twice. But, like, if you keep doing that, it's going to sound like one person over and over and over again. And it's not going to sound like a choir. What you can do is track yourself with your regular voice once or twice, move on, and say, okay, let's do that same exact thing, but up in your higher octave, and then do it like this, "because you," and then you do it in the lower octave where you go, "because you," and then you sound like a bunch of different voices at that point, and then it sounds like an actual choir. So here's what that sounds like, right? I'll just go one by one. Because so, or not because, so you actually have the screamo track right there. Then you have the low screaming track. "Because you." And then you have the not even screaming, lazy, "Yeah, do it." And then you have this, whatever this is. Okay, so literally what I just did was I backed off the mic and I went up to my higher octave because yeah, that's all I did. And it gave it more room and it sounded like a bunch of more people. God, there's so many vocal tracks. Okay, so yeah, so that's all I did there. So moving on. Yeah, so the chorus is basically the exact same thing over and over. And then it goes into this last little outro bit. Once again, going over that at the very end, I feel like that was a really, really good foot to leave off on. And then at the very, very end as well, we also have these little vocal tracks that get it just the voice gets like opened up wide, and then it's just what is it? Tell me what I can do for you is the lyrics. So, and it sounds really, really open, really, really wide, but it's all the same person, but it's harmonized and it sounds really, really nice. So here's what it sounds like. Tell me what I can do for you. Yeah, sounds really, really dope. Very epic and very big. So, but yeah, so for the most part, that is how it's made. So thank you very, very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you liked the video, please leave a like, all that good stuff. And if you support my music and my musical journey, you can hit the subscribe button right down there, because I'll be posting, as the time of recording, a new album here very soon. I don't have a release date yet, but I'll let you guys know. So yeah, so thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.